The Atlanta Hawks been trying to make some moves the last few years, and they had a nice little trade package. If y'all don't know, they was into it with big interest with Pascal Siakam. But the trade, well, I want to say it fell through, but it didn't fall through for one person, and we gonna get into it. And it ain't the Kobe we know. Welcome to this NBA Central. We finna get into it after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
Y'all for coming in for another episode of NBA Central. It's your boy Stevo Speaks. I'm with Drip. Hey man, we came to talk about some Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, I'd rather talk about anybody else but these Bulls. But yeah, so if you don't know, it was a thing that dropped on Twitter. And they were saying like I said, they was interested in Pascal Siakam, which I thought would be a great replacement for John Collins. Even more so because even though I like John Collins, but I always felt like he wasn't a proper forward for that team for it to work, especially with the new addition of why is my his name slipping my head? You just said his name. Seattle dude. What's his name? The point guard.
Who? Oh,
The point
DeJounte Murray?
DeJounte Murray.
Yeah.
With DeJounte Murray there, it just kind of felt like for one, they already attempted to trade him. So and then they signed him anyway. They didn't want to pay him what they did, but they ended up paying him. So I just felt like their relationship was already kind of in the air. And then they end up getting that trade off to send him to Utah, which I feel like is much better for him up over there with Laurie. But when I found out that they was interested in Pascal, I was like, yeah, y'all need to make that happen. Pascal is not the same Pascal that won a championship. His game has completely grew on the offensive level. First off, before we get deep into the talks of it, how do you feel about them being interested into Pascal Siakam?
I think Pascal Siakam makes a lot of sense for that team. I think, is he going to stretch the floor? No, not at all, right? He has a little bit of that ability, 32% for his career shooting three. He can hit wide open shots, but I think when you look at a power forward who can do some things, you can put the ball in his hands, who's just outright going to be able to score at two levels for sure, and three levels with if he's wide open from the 3-point range. I think he pairs with Clint Capella pretty good as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like Siakam for that team. Of course, it comes down to what you have to give up, but you could do a lot worse than Siakam on that team, I think.
So you said, what do you have to do to give up? So this is the trade package that I seen that was out there. The trade package included DeAndre Hunter, AJ Griffin, and this was the key that broke the whole trade package down. They're recently drafted. I forget what college he went to, but Kobe Buffkin.
Buffkin.
Sound like too close to buffet, but I'm just saying. But that was the thing. That was the thing. It was Corey Buffman was like the last add-on that they really wanted, which is understandable if they're going to give up somebody of that magnitude. Even though they have a ton of guards over there, so I don't know how many guards you want to put over there, but he is a nice piece and somebody you could see as a potential keystone in your future. So, what do you feel about them not wanting to give up Kobe?
So, I mean, you talked about this a little bit off air. Like Kobe Buffkin, I can understand you not wanting to give up had you not just locked in DeJounte Murray to a long-term deal. Now, I will say this, though, is that maybe there is some, and we've heard rumblings, maybe they expect to have to move Trey Young soon and then go fully
Yeah.
young. And if they do that, then it makes sense to keep Kobe Buffkin around as a 19-year-old player. So like the Hawks have to decide what path they're going to take. They sit in kind of the same place as our Chicago Bulls, right? Are you going to go full youth,
Limbo.
or are you going to go in and try to make this core as strong as possible so that you can try to make it out the East? And the thing is, like, looking at Pascal Siakam, he's a free agent, I think, in another year or so. And maybe the Hawks just looked at it and said, all right, we don't think even with bringing Pascal here that we are now at that level where we can make it out the East. So let's hold on and see where the chips fall. Because if they have to, last thing you want to do is give up a bunch of assets to bring in Siakam, and then you find out a year later it doesn't work, and then you still end up moving on from like a Trey Young or something. So that's me trying to rationalize it. But from where I stand, you just gave DeJounte a bunch of money. I would have brought in Pascal Siakam and took a shot at it, bro.
Yeah, because it's just like you said, they're kind of similar and us, except they decided to fire a coach.
Yeah.
But it was under different circumstances. I will also say because our situation, why we want to get rid of our coach, is completely different. Like you said, the future with Trey Young is not as to like the other superstars that are around the league that's locked up on deals is not as I would say prosperous or even look towards the future because you just don't know what his headspace at right now.
Yeah.
I think everything kind of started around the 2021 season. They would start out with Lloyd Pierce as as their coach. Wasn't doing terrible. I think at the time they fired him, I believe they was 41-31. And but we knew it was time. And we actually liked the Nate McMillan signing as their coach. We thought he was gonna do some things, made a playoff berth, made it all the way to the ECF. And then ever since then, they couldn't get on one accord. They brought in DeJounte Murray. Now everything is in limbo. And I feel like this is one of those. This was a trade that could have went down that would have broke that limbo. Like
Yeah.
you said, with DeJounte Murray being there, they still with Trey Young there, they still haven't completely figured out the offense. Like they're like a lot of things going with the Bulls. They're playing my turn, and you know my turn don't work. That don't coincide into wins. Reasoning why they was what they ended what six in the East last year,
Yeah.
or so sixth in the East,
I think.
and they've really been in that frame 5, 6 in the East for the most part. And yeah, you need one of those big. I would consider this a big signing or a big trade to go down if it were to happen. And you know, there's a lot of trades throughout the NBA history that it goes down to one player, and then the one player always break the back. Trust me, we know about it. Luol Deng was probably the the catalyst to break a lot of big time deals that could have happened to Chicago here. But yeah, it's just wild to see how all this coincide, and you don't know what direction they going. Um, I forget who's the new coach there. Is it Snyder? No,
Is it Quinn
is it?
Snyder?
I want
Ah,
to say, or is it dude from Then they get him from Golden State. Golden State. He
yeah,
coached
Quinn Snyder.
Brooklyn.
No, Quinn
It's
Snyder
Quinn
is it.
Snyder,
Yeah, Quinn
the
Snyder's it.
Utah coach. Oh, Utah coach, which I liked. I would
Yeah.
have picked him over Billy.
And I like his system. I think he
Yeah.
has the type of system where he does get the most out of his players and he plays to their strengths, which may be another reason why they want to really see if this backcourt's going to work. Because if Quinn Snyder can't get it to work, I
Blow it
don't
up.
know many coaches that can. Like, and so I think the Hawks, and which a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference right now sit in that limbo. When you really look at it, the Knicks are waiting for a true superstar to come there, right, to kind of make that roster work a little bit more. The Atlanta Hawks, we just talked about them. The Miami Heat are waiting on Dame Lillard. The Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls, all those teams kind of sit in that same place where they're either waiting for a young player to make that necessary next step, or they're trying to hope that they can eventually use some of the assets that they have to bring in somebody else to really kind of push them up into that next tier in the Eastern Conference. And so, maybe the Hawks are wanting to see, and maybe they make a decision by the trade deadline, because I think them and the Toronto Raptors both could be teams that are either looking to buy and sell, to do both by that
Hmm.
trade deadline, depending on how it happens.
So all right, Hayes. I know you just had a handful to say, but I gotta ask you a question. I need you to put your GM hat on.
Okay.
What direction are you going?
For the Hawks specifically,
Just specifically, what moves are you making where you feel like this is an opportunity to push this franchise forward to be a real legit contender?
to me, and if the guys, I'm not high on Trey Young. I understand that he can absolutely score the ball and he can do some facilitating. But if I'm betting on a version of this team, I'm moving Trey Young while I still can. I think you
Mhm.
can get the most back for him. I think that DeJounte Murray is a good enough point guard, depending on what you get back, that you're not going to look back and like the point guard isn't going to be a huge hole for you. But that would be what I'm doing. Like right now, to me, I'm looking at Trey Young first. I'm looking to see what we can get for Trey, what the value is out there. While you still have he still has 3 years on his deal left after this season. So if you can get enough back for Trey Young, I think that can set your franchise up to where you can compete now and wait for a young player like a Kobe Buffkin to kind of develop and see what you have in there. But I don't think especially in the Eastern Conference, I don't think you're falling off too much depending on what's back. And there's a
Right.
lot of teams too that could be looking for that point guard in Trey Young. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that's needing a point guard, but yeah, I won't say I disagree. I probably will go that same direction because to me, like I don't think people when they break down, they see the success of Steph Curry. Like I don't think they understand how hard and how much almost luck it takes to bring in the right regime, the right coaches, the right owners from a top to bottom to make that work. It's not that easy to make. First of all, he's limited on physical things. He's not that tall. They say he's 6 foot. He's all of 5'11". I don't care what nobody says. But yeah, it's just he doesn't. There's a defensive liability. Yes, he's a playmaker, but sometimes he turns into a chucker. And when it comes to like that, people sometimes question him as a pure point guard. He can be in certain situations. I think, but man, oh, I thought you was frozen, bro. You wrong
Oh,
with that, bro.
when I
But
stay still, I be still.
no, that was statue. But yeah, I just think like it's very difficult to make players like him work. He's not the normal prototype basketball player
Mhm.
where it's easy to come up the right type of formula. Like even with Golden State, it took the right coach to unlock it.
Yeah,
It took,
that's true.
and we done went through it. We're going through two now. So it's like after this second one, I'm giving it a year, honestly. I give it a year to see what you got after this, and then I'm moving. I'm moving from Trey. Honestly, if I'm picking out of the two, I'm moving from Trey because he's the hardest person to figure out and make it work in a basketball form to
Yeah,
win.
and let me be clear. I know I started it off by saying I'm not the highest on Trey Young, but that doesn't mean that I'm out on Trey Young either. Like I
No,
do think that there is a roster construction that you can maximize the most out of Trey Young. I just don't think that the Atlanta Hawks have that yet, and I think that it would take them to give up so much to get that version of the roster that it will make more sense if it doesn't work this year to move on from Trey. That's just my personal opinion, and that like I said, I mean, is there a way that they could still do some other things? Yeah. I mean, I guess if DeJounte has a big season, they could look to move DeJounte. I've heard rumblings that they've already took some calls on Clint Capella at different times that they
yeah, I
haven't really
heard that
found the
too.
deal that they like. So, I mean, the Hawks seem like they're listening to offers on everyone. And that's what you should do when you're a middle of the pack team in either conference. You should listen to all the calls and see what the best option for your franchise is moving forward. But I think we start getting some clarity on that by the trade deadline this year.
Yeah, for sure. Like, because like I said, it's just to me, he's he the only person you can kind of compare him to is Steph, but it's just things Steph does that's like I don't know how to build it. Like at the end of the day, you can kind of figure out how to build around Steph because he matured his game into a certain way and his body physically to handle certain things.
Yeah.
Whereas he plays defense now, he's become a better playmaker now. That mid range shot is deadly, so he can work on every size of the court with and without the ball. You have a very short guy that's ball dominant heavily. That's not necessarily the greatest playmaker, but can play make. He doesn't attack the basket the same way. More attacks the basket, getting looking for fouls and floaters, which is different. So it's just like you just got to find the right formula for Trey Young. Again, Atlanta might not be the place where they find it, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it can't be found. It just and not there. And hey, sometimes you just got to cut your laws and say I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean that's what it boils down to. Like I think that some of these GMs, especially if it's players that they drafted, they have a reluctance to say, I can't figure out how to build around. Like we talk about it, like Gar Forman and Paxson were stupid, but it did take a level of awareness to say we don't know how to build around Jimmy. Now
Yeah.
I think they should have got more back for Jimmy, or that's when they should have left. But it takes a
Mhm.
level of awareness. I think some GMs are hesitant to do that. That's why when you see new GMs come in, they don't have the attachment to those players. They make those deals, they make those moves off those players quicker. And so we'll see what happens with the Hawks in that. But like I always there's a lot of pieces that I actually like on this Atlanta Hawks team. Like I like Bogdanovich a lot too. Like that's a guy that
I would take him
listen, I just
Hunter.
love the way he performs. He goes after it on both sides of the ball. Like is he a great defender? No. Is
No,
he a great shooter? No. Some nights he will, but like I just like him overall. But like he's another player, 31 years old, like not old in real life, but like you have to start asking yourself,
he give me a
is this a
Marco
piece?
Bellinelli vibe.
Exactly. But is this a piece that we're going to be able to, by the time we get to where we want to go, is this a piece that is still going to be here? If not, you have to start listening to call. So we'll
Yeah,
see, man.
yeah, because you know that Trey Young is tied to Luca forever.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the key things with that. But yeah, man, most importantly, we want to know y'all thoughts in the comments for sure. This ain't my team. We want to hear from y'all from Atlanta. How y'all feel down there? We not saying that Trey is not the guy. He just might not be the guy for y'all. And if y'all think he might be the guy, tell us why and tell us what y'all would do. But as y'all pretty much, I'm pretty sure all of us can agree that y'all at a y'all at a crossroads. Y'all need to make a decision. Y'all don't y'all. To be honest, y'all almost at a three-part crossroads: the coaching, the staff,
Yeah.
your GM, management, and team. So, hey, we want to hear what y'all got to say down. There's been another episode for NBA Central, and when we feel like making another video, we will do so. Check
Peace, y'all.
y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.